Welcome back to my channel. Okay, let's get into this one right here. 224 to 267. And the Republicans claim victory. They're not yet to 270, but they have claimed victory, the Republican Party, and Donald Trump. We'll see what happens. When I went to bed, Trump was putting a foot up in her, and she has regained ground greatly. Now it's talk of foul play, voted this, voted that. You know, your usual. You know, Trump said a lot of this stuff when he was losing, when he lost. So this is really no surprise. And the projection is that Trump is going to win this. I don't see how this really isn't a bigger landslide when we look at the whole map is red. This is what I'm going to say, because, you know, I'm not for none of these candidates. I went to sleep and I told you guys, we need Kamala to win. We need Kamala Harris to make history as not only the first female president, but the first female black president, as they say. We want this girl magic, okay? This is what we want. We want the inflation and the debt to be on her back. That's what it needs to be. Why would anybody want to take on this type of inflation that you ain't even felt yet? You ain't even felt this yet. It's not going to come for another 5 years. What the Democrats have done, this is not a Democrat-Republican thing, folks. It's not a Democrat-Republican thing. It's not an American or a foundation American versus immigrant versus illegal immigrant. What these guys have done, and I've told you before, the economy of the United States, all these countries in the Western Hemisphere, Brazil, except Canada, Brazil, Mexico, El Salvador, Guatemala, Jamaica, all of them, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico. I know Puerto Rico is part of us. Even Hawaii is part of us. All the countries in the Western Hemisphere outside of Canada, whatever happens in the United States economy, good or bad, affects all these other countries. It just does. Just like in Europe, whatever happens in Europe affects all the other countries around Europe, like Africa and the Middle East and even Asia, even parts of Asia, Philippines, all this stuff. That's just how it is, folks. There's no two ways around it. So the Democrats, what they did is so, like I said, it has nothing to do with Democrat, Republican, it has nothing to do with black and white. What they did was just like so absurd. And you really wouldn't even think that they would do something like that. They did crazy stuff in the past, but nothing to the extent of what they done. And everybody just thinks that if Trump does win this thing, gets to 270, that Trump is going to come in office and fix what they did. What they did was criminal. What they did was criminal. And we're going to see in these years to come the criminal acts that these people did. It's criminal. There's no, and you got, God bless black people's heart, because they know nothing about politics. Nothing. They just say, I'm black, I got to vote Democrat. Then white people voting Republican. They racist. They don't know nothing about, not just black people in general. A lot of people is out here voting based on color. And it's not really the vote that, per se, that I'm talking about, because we all know that according to the law, only the delegates can vote the president into office. That's the law. The citizens get the popular vote, which is the feel-good vote. But I'm just talking about your energy, in which this is how you want America to be ran as far as the black community. It getting taken over by illegal immigrants and companies and corporations that hire these people and pay them bullcrap money. And they tell you on the news that you don't want to work. That's why they got to bring in these people to replace you. This is the Democratic Party. This is the Democratic Party that's telling you to get vaxxed or you lose your job. You don't care about people. It's the right thing to do. All this stuff. But yet they let 12 million unvaxxed people into this country. What, because they care about them? But suddenly they don't care about other people by bringing in 12 million people and shipping them off to all these towns, on top of homeless people, on top of people who struggling to get a job, people struggling to pay their bills, and you're putting these people illegally on top of people, unvaxxed, no background check to see if they're murderers, killers, rapists, drug dealers, all this stuff. Tell me this has anything to do with Democrat and Republican. Nothing. It has to do with these people are criminals. That's not the American dream. The American dream isn't, oh, my country is a dictatorship. Come clear out my country and put us on top of other people who are barely making it. And then we got to pay for that stuff. We got to pay through inflation. I'm fine with it. The people who vote for this nonsense, the people who put their energy towards this nonsense, you pay for it. You pay for it every time you go to the grocery store, or you go to the mall and buy something, or you pump gas, or you want to buy your children some school clothes. You dummies who vote for these people to be in office, you pay for these people. You pay for these people's behavior. You pay for it. Most people can barely even make it by in the black community. They had the nerve to vote for these people who are doing criminal acts. What criminal acts? What do you mean criminal acts? Well, you have a Department of Immigration, right? Where you're supposed to come through this country and do it the right way. Millions have. What's the problem? So if those millions have, and those people do it every single day, every single hour, and they pay thousands of dollars for a lawyer, right? Thousands of dollars for a background check to see if they got diseases, see if they're criminals, killers, rapists, drug dealers, to see if everything is on the up and up. So if they pay all this money, but you let 12 million people in with no background check to see if they had diseases, anything, for free? So where is the money back to the people who did it right? Explain that, black community. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Black people know nothing about the country in which they live in. These immigrants know more about the laws and about what's going on in America than black people do. That's the sad truth. That's the sad truth. All black Americans know, and that's all I knew before. You Democrat, you got to vote Democrat. But it's never been like this. I mean, you don't even have to be, you don't even have to have any logic to figure out you're with a party who is erasing you out of America, is hiring people over your children, over you, gentrifying you out with the same people they bring in that you vote for, that you want to replace you. It's ridiculous. Just because somebody is, they've been playing that race card on black people for a long, that thing has backfired. Like I said, the whole racism thing on black people in the black community is white versus black. It backfired. 98% of the immigrants since the 1960s that have came to this country, since desegregation, have been immigrants of color. 98%. And have no problem in the United States. Remember, the black and white thing is always either American blacks versus American whites. How come white people, you never hear nothing about American white people have beef with Jamaicans, Barbadians, all these other black people, or all these other people of color, El Salvadorians, Guatemalans, Brazilians, Liberians, the people from Ghana? It's just the whole black and white thing has backfired on the black community. While you was worried about white people, guess what? You was getting flooded out with melanated or immigrants who are people of color. They don't have no problem with America. How come America has no problem with them? No beef, no nothing. They can come over here, have nice cars, nice houses, have $10,000 in the bank just like that. Boom. 720, 820 credit score just like that. Boom. No problem. Get these jobs. So how is America racist? It's funny. No, they use this on you, so you'll always be looking left while something else is happening on the damn right. And what's always happened was that them bringing these people in to replace you, people of immigrants of color, right? Guess who's hiring them? The racist white man. It was all a joke, right? It was all a joke. So yeah, this is what I'm gonna say. And the whole thing, black versus white, it just ain't about black people. It was a trick on many poor whites too. Because don't think that same thing wasn't happening to them while they was worried about black people. Guess what? The immigrants came in and wiped them out too. It's a trick, man. This whole trick. If you go to any country, they do the same tactics, right? To get the people arguing at odds. All this nonsense. It might be in India, it's called a caste system. In other countries, they call it colorism. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Fueled by the government, so they have the people looking the other way. Most countries you go to, what's going on is immigrants taking over. You go to Europe, you go to Dominican Republic. The Haitians are the blue-collar workers over there. Somebody told me in Mexico, Jamaica, the Mexicans are the blue-collar workers over there. Or is it Filipino? I forget. You go to, where was it at? Africa. The Chinese are the blue-collar workers. So it's a worldwide thing where they want these people in here working for cheap so they can build, so these companies, corporations can build their empires. And it's just not the blue-collar industry. It's all kind of industries where they done ship jobs overseas. You know, you talk to somebody on the phone, they're in another damn country. So listen, I wanted these people to win. I wanted Kamala Harris. I wanted the Democrats to win this thing again, so they can shoulder the burden for their damage. Why put it on? Why would you want to shoulder this burden? You're not going to turn this thing around. You can stop it from getting worse, right? But you can't turn it around. This is like something kind of common. You know, when Obama came in office and he had to shoulder what Bush did, and by the time he left office, especially his first term, nobody expected him to really fix what Bush did, Bush Jr. And by the time he got out of office, Obama basically did nothing. And because of his first term, he was just a Hollywood star, right? The first black president. He was just going around the talk shows doing this, and he was just a star for being the first Indonesian president. I mean, black president. Black president. In the second term, he lost the House, and I think they lost the Senate. They lost everything. So the thing was, what do you want him to do? He couldn't do nothing. The Republicans controlled everything. Yeah, they already had that plan. So I wouldn't say his term it got worse, but he really didn't do ish while he was in office. I think Bill Clinton, he really cleaned up a lot from Bush Senior when he came in office. And Clinton, he basically had the best term, right? 8-year term. He had the best term. And if they would have kept on track of what his policies was in his economy, we would have been out of debt in 10 years. It would have been something incredible. But it was like head scratching, because that was a decade where, it was pretty much over for black people right there, the 90s. As far as, the 90s, a lot of people accumulated a lot of wealth, right? Because of computer age. But in the black community, that's when it started to go down, because of this thing, not only because of crack, but it was fueled by gangster rap. Gangster rap was sitting on the block selling rocks. Hey, police, I'm right here selling crack cocaine in my community, and I will shoot this other black person to sell these drugs while I'm gangbanging, and I'm not going to work, and all my women are the B word. That's pretty much what the 90s was. Whether you like it or not, for the black community, that's what the 90s was. And that's why you see since 2000, the gentrification has been swift. Because that's when the black community, the home ownership was started to go down. Everybody that was black that wanted to be something or do something, they left the black community. You can say that started to happen in the 60s, right? You really started to see that happen in the 60s after Martin Luther King's, well, you could say 70s really, in the 70s after Martin Luther King did the desegregation, and that was it as far as black ownership, black economics, and black people being disciplined, right? Because when we talk about desegregation, it wasn't just about going to eat white people's hamburgers. I don't know why that was so important for the black community to go eat hamburgers with white people. I guess they made the best hamburgers, right? Crying and screaming and doing backflips to eat hamburgers with white people, when black people had their own everything: tire shops, hardware stores, clothing stores, hospitals, schools. And if you ask the black people in the West, in the North, they weren't happy about this. Even though they weren't really as segregated as the people in the South, they weren't happy with Martin Luther King at all. Because if you go back and you look at some of these interviews, they already seen it. They said if this desegregation happens, we're done. Black ownership and black business is done. And it wasn't just because, you're going to segregate with or be with white people. It was about the immigrants coming in and taking over. And they already do that. The only way you could destroy the black community was what? Desegregation. It didn't make it better. Tell me today, as black people for the last 10, 20 years marched down the ghettos of Martin Luther King, the gentrified ghettos of Martin Luther King around the whole country. Tell me how that benefited black people in the black community. They can't tell you. It didn't benefit nobody, but the system brought in all these immigrants to take over the black community. White people, per se, didn't really set up shop that much in the black community. It was immigrants, right? It was more immigrants. Yes, white people did, but it was more immigrants. So we won't even get into that, But yeah, let's get back on that, because, my heart is like on reality. A lot of people's heart is on nonsense. And listen, a lot of people might not like me, the way I talk, because I don't talk about history built on a system. You can't be for you're saying you have beliefs and thoughts one way about what's right in this world, in injustice, and what justice should be. But yet a system that continues to destroy the people, you tell their history. You pump your fist with the people who destroy the people. Martin Luther King is not my hero. I don't care what anybody says, what anybody thinks. If you do a background check on who Martin Luther King is, he worked for the government. He worked for the government, right? To get the unregistered black people registered to vote. And those unregistered black people who couldn't vote, they couldn't vote because their land wasn't registered in the South. To register, it means to give it away. And a lot of blacks didn't want to register their land, because when you register it, that means it can get taxed. In the early 1900s, black people owned 90 million acres of land. Today, barely any, because Martin Luther King registered their land away just to vote. That's a whole different story. That has to do with Jim Crow. And not all black people couldn't vote in the South during Jim Crow because they registered their land. But a lot of black people after the Civil War that own land, but nobody can explain to you how black people own land during slavery. Nobody can explain to you how all these black people, we'll do a whole video on it, black people in the South endorse the Southern Confederacy and sent their children to the Civil War with the Confederacy in the South. Own millions of acres of land and own thousands of slaves during slavery. You know what I'm saying? All black people in the South that was free own slaves? No, I'm not trying to say that. But when the North won, right, the Civil War, they put their good old boys in place, and they told this was Jim Crow. Imagine the story they're telling you about slavery. I mean, you you have to be a person that was walking down the hallway in special needs, wearing a motorcycle helmet so you don't bust your head up, to believe such a story when you use any little brain cell that's floating around in your brain? It doesn't make any sense. Their story is all these millions of black people were slaves. Although all these millions of black people up north weren't slaves. And when you look at the numbers, only 1.4% of people were even slaves at the time. Well, of the population, 1.4 people was even slaves in the United States at the height of slavery, which means you had all these free blacks in the North, in the West, in the South, in the East, going to colleges, were business people, were doctors, were teachers, were farmers. So who were they freeing? It is forbidden to talk about white slavery. Forbidden. Don't talk about the people who were slaved for thousands and thousands and thousands of years by black people over there in the Middle East. The Moors. Whoosh, you better be quiet. Don't talk about all the white people who were slaved in China, in India, in Africa. You don't even talk about that. That's forbidden. And all the white people that was enslaved in America, and even Europeans enslaved white people. Master said, don't talk about that. That'll change everything. What about the black slave owners in America who enslaved white people? White slavery is so bad, was so bad up until the 1900s that you would have nightmares trying to go to sleep after you read the real story on white slavery. It's bone chilling how their women was treated, how they took them to the Middle East and cut off their private parts and enslaved them. You better keep that a secret. Master said don't say nothing. Master said don't say nothing. They want you to actually believe that these black people in America was enslaved from 1600 all the way to the 1800s, didn't have a pot to piss in. When they were released, the story is so funny because you have all these stories of black people taking their slave owners to court for this and that. Man, let me get off it. It's so ridiculous. But don't even have a pot to piss in. You're released from slavery, and right away they put Jim Crow on you. For what? I don't have nothing. How are you putting Jim Crow on me? How is a KKK foreman on people who have nothing? What are you mad about? I don't have nothing. That's their story. Black people had nothing coming out of slavery. Look, folks, this isn't good because you don't want the Republicans to win. They're going to have to burden this whole thing of what these criminals did, giving all these billions of dollars out to the companies, corporations during COVID, other countries, billions to legal immigrants, billions. And look, it's not really going to be good because this is, look, as much as I talk about immigration, illegal immigration, what the Trump office wants to do is they want to take all these people home. It's not going to be good. They're not the criminals. They were told, the Democrats told them to stand down, Border Patrol to stand down and let all these people in. So who's the real criminals? Who's the real criminals? Who did the real criminal act? Who did it? Was it the people who crossed the border who was told, who were starving where they came from and didn't have a pot to piss in and were told, come across this border and come get this food? So you're trying to tell me that you wouldn't do it? I know I would. If the president of the United States is telling me, and this is the border czar, Kamala Harris, telling these people to come across the border, get cell phones, get money cards, get houses, get all this stuff, who's the criminal? It's not the immigrants. It's Joe Biden. It's Kamala Harris. So you can't send these people back home. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of money if this is what Trump is going to do. You need to go after the real criminals. The criminals who did this, the Democrats. They're the criminals.